When they learned the Mafia boss's secret, there was no way back. It started on a night that smelled like rust and rain. The kind of night when the streets of Palermo feel alive, whispering secrets through the cracks in the pavement, breathing fear through every alleyway. I remember sitting in my old car, the wipers fighting against the storm, staring at the building across the street, the Rossi Club. To most people, it was just a nightclub for the rich and powerful. But for those who knew better, it was his place. Don Vieri's kingdom. I shouldn't have been there. I wasn't part of that world. I was just a driver, a ghost behind the wheel, moving people and money from one side of the city to the other, pretending not to see what I saw. But that night, my friend Luca called me. His voice trembled through the static of the phone. He said, "Marco, I need to show you something. Something that could change everything." I didn't ask questions. Luca wasn't the type to panic. If he was scared, it meant something was very wrong. The club's lights flickered red and gold, reflecting off the puddles like spilled blood. Men in suits smoked under the awning, pretending to laugh. The kind of laughter that hides a gun in the back pocket. I waited in the car, counting the seconds. 10 minutes. 15. And then, suddenly, Luca appeared at the door, drenched, breathless, his eyes wide with fear. He ran across the street, slipped once on the wet concrete, and jumped into the passenger seat. He was clutching something, a small leather folder pressed tight against his chest as if it were a heartbeat. "Drive," he said. His voice cracked. I started the engine, tires sliding through the rain as we sped down the narrow road. "What's going on?" I asked. "What's in the folder?" He didn't answer right away. He just kept looking behind us, watching the shadows move. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Don Vieri, he's not who everyone thinks he is." I thought he was crazy. Everyone knew Vieri was dangerous, the kind of man whose name made people lower their voices. But Luca wasn't talking about fear or power. He was talking about something else. Something deeper. He opened the folder and showed me a few photographs. My stomach turned. They weren't just pictures, they were evidence. Documents, letters, transactions connecting Don Vieri to people far above the Mafia. Politicians, police captains, even judges. "Marco," he said, "this isn't just crime. This is control." I stared at the papers, realizing what I was holding. Luca had uncovered something that could destroy the Rossi family, maybe even shake the entire city. But before I could say a word, headlights filled the rearview mirror. 3 black cars, closing in. Luca's voice broke. "They know." I turned sharply, cutting through side streets, but they followed. The sound of engines grew louder, closer, heavier. "Who knows Luca? What did you do?" I shouted. He looked at me, eyes wild. "I copied their files. Everything. They found out tonight. We have to get out." A gunshot exploded through the rear window. Glass rained down across the seats. Luca ducked, clutching the folder. I took a sharp left, nearly losing control. Then another shot, and this time it hit him. He gasped. Just once. Blood spread across his shirt. He looked at me, shaking, his lips trying to form a word that never came out. I screamed his name, but the rain swallowed it whole. The car skidded, crashed against a wall, and the world went black. When I woke up, it was dawn. The rain had stopped. The car was gone. The street was empty. And Luca was nowhere to be found. For a moment, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw it, the folder, lying on the passenger seat, soaked but still intact. I picked it up with shaking hands, and in that moment I felt it, that invisible weight pressing against my chest. Luca had died for something I didn't understand. But now it was mine. His secret. His curse. I went home that morning with the folder wrapped in plastic, hiding it beneath the floorboards. I told myself I'd throw it away, burn it, forget it. But every time I tried to sleep, I saw his face. The fear in his eyes. The blood on his shirt. 2 days later, I read the headline. Local man found dead near Palermo docks. Suspected Mafia involvement. Luca's name. His photo. The police called it an accident. But I knew better. He hadn't died because of what he did. He died because of what he knew. And me. I should have walked away. I should have left that night, disappeared, started over. But something inside me changed. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was revenge. Or maybe it was destiny. Because once you've seen the truth behind men like Don Vieri, once you've looked into the darkness that runs the city, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending the world is clean. That's the thing about secrets. They don't belong to you. You belong to them. Silencio. Sonda Chava Voltando, suave. Marco Cesara. That was the night everything changed. The night I inherited a secret that was never meant to be found. The night Luca died, and I began to live someone else's life. The folder sat on my table for hours. I couldn't stop staring at it. It was just leather and paper, but somehow it felt alive. Like it was breathing in the dark, waiting for me to open it again. I told myself I wouldn't, that I'd leave it there untouched. But curiosity is a poison, and I had already taken the first sip. I pulled the chair closer and unbuckled the strap. Inside, the papers were soaked from the rain, edges torn, words smeared in places. But the names were still clear. Police chiefs, bankers, politicians, and all of them tied to one man, Don Vieri. I'd heard stories about him since I was a kid. The king of the underworld, the man who built an empire from blood and silence. But this was different. These weren't rumors. They were signatures, transactions, proof. And then, something caught my eye, a letter. Handwritten, faded, signed with a name I hadn't seen in years. Isabella Moretti. The name felt like a ghost. She had been Don Vieri's wife. Beautiful, quiet, untouchable. People said she died 5 years ago in a car crash. Her funeral had been closed casket, and the press wasn't allowed near it. But this letter was dated 3 months ago. Her words were desperate. She wrote about a truth that could destroy Vieri's empire, about people disappearing, about things buried under warehouses near the old port. And at the end, she wrote something that froze my blood. If you're reading this, it means I've failed to escape. But someone must know what he's hiding. Don't trust anyone, not even the police. Find Luca. He knows where I am. I pushed the chair back, trembling. She was alive. Or at least, she had been. And Luca had found her. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to destroy the folder. To burn it, throw it into the sea, pretend I'd never seen any of it. I lit a match, watched the flame dance just above the edge of the paper. But I couldn't do it, because a part of me, the same part that had always wanted to understand the things people feared, wanted to know why. Why would a man like Don Vieri fake his wife's death? Why did Luca risk everything for this? And what was the secret that could tear everything apart? I put the match out, and that's when I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow. Heavy. Measured. Not a neighbor. Not an accident. Someone who knew I was there. I froze. The lights flickered once, twice. Then a voice came from the other side. Calm, polite, terrifyingly familiar. Marco Rossi. The way he said my name made my stomach twist. Whoever he wasn't asking. He was confirming. I didn't answer. I reached for the gun Luca had left under the seat of my car and held my breath. Another knock. Louder. Marco, we need to talk. I could see the shadow under the door. Boots. More than one pair. Then silence. And then footsteps walking away. I didn't move for almost an hour. When I finally did, I packed everything. The folder, the gun, some cash, and left through the back alley. I drove all night. Through the rain. Through the hills. Through towns that didn't know my name. But even as the miles passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still behind me. Watching. Waiting. That night, I stopped at a roadside motel. The kind where no one asks questions, and no one remembers faces. The owner gave me a key without looking up. Room 7. I sat on the bed, the folder beside me, and stared at the window. I thought about Luca, about how he had looked at me in that final second like he was begging me not to make the same mistake. But maybe I already had. The truth about secrets is that they never die quietly. They echo. They find ways to stay alive. Through paper, through whispers, through people too stubborn to let them go. That night I made a choice. A stupid one, maybe. But it felt like the only thing that mattered. I was going to find Isabella Moretti. And if Don Vieri's empire had to burn for that to happen, then so be it. I left Palermo before sunrise, heading south toward Naples. The folder sat on the passenger seat, wrapped in an old jacket, as if that could somehow protect me from what it carried. Every mile, I told myself this was insane. But deep down, I knew something bigger was at play. Luca hadn't died by chance. The knock on my door hadn't been random. And Isabella's letter, it wasn't a cry for help. It was a message, a warning. As the road stretched into the horizon, I whispered to myself, "There's no way back now." People like me, people who live in the shadows, we spend our lives pretending not to see what's in front of us. But once the light touches the truth, once it burns through the lies, you can't unsee it. And I had already seen too much. The highway to Naples felt endless. The sun was just a faint line behind the mountains, bleeding into the horizon. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, just kept driving, following a map drawn by fear and instinct. Every sign, every shadow felt like a warning. And yet, for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from something. I was running toward the truth. Somewhere between the broken asphalt and the smell of salt in the air, I realized what I was really chasing. Not money, not revenge, but answers. Answers that had killed Luca and maybe, just maybe, would kill me too. By the time I reached Naples, night had fallen again. The city lights shimmered across the bay, beautiful from a distance, rotten up close. I checked into a small guest house near the docks, under a fake name. Marco Rinaldi. The woman at the counter didn't even look at me. She was used to ghosts passing through. I spent the night reading every page of the folder again, memorizing every face and name. And there she was, Isabella Moretti. The woman who, according to every record in Palermo, had died 5 years ago. Yet her letter was sitting right there in front of me. The folder said she had once been part of a charity foundation, an organization that helped women disappear from violent homes. But the deeper I read, the clearer it became that it wasn't a charity. It was a front, a way for Don Vieri to move money and people without being traced. I didn't know what Isabella had seen, but I knew it had been enough to make her vanish. So I did what Luca would have done. I followed her ghost. The next morning, I went to the last address listed in her letters, a small chapel on the outskirts of Naples. Old stone, cracked walls, candles still burning near the altar. It didn't look like a place for someone to hide. But the truth is, sometimes the best hiding place is one that no one would dare to look into. I sat on the last pew and waited. Minutes passed, then hours. The silence was almost holy, until I heard footsteps. Soft, slow, deliberate. When I turned around, I saw her. A woman in a dark coat, her face hidden under a veil. She walked straight toward the altar, knelt, and crossed herself. Her movements were graceful but careful, the way someone moves when they've been hunted too long. Then, as if sensing me, she turned. And for a moment, the world stopped. Her eyes met mine, green, sharp, familiar. It was her. It was Isabella Moretti. I stood up slowly, afraid that if I spoke, she'd disappear like a ghost. But she didn't. She smiled just slightly and whispered, "Luca told me you'd come." The sound of her voice hit me like thunder. How could she know my name? How could she know I was coming? Before I could answer, she raised a finger to her lips. "Not here," she said. "They're watching." She slipped a folded paper into my jacket pocket and walked out through a side door. No explanation. No goodbye. I waited a full minute before following her, but when I stepped outside, the street was empty. She was gone. I opened the note under a streetlight. It was written in the same handwriting as the letter I'd found in the folder. "If you're reading this, it means you've seen too much. Don Vieri built his empire with blood, but not only that, with secrets the world can't imagine. He doesn't rule alone. The men who help him wear suits, not guns. Find the train station outside the city. Midnight. Come alone. No signature. Just the scent of perfume that clung to the paper, faint like a memory fading." That night, I drove to the edge of Naples, where the abandoned rail lines stretched toward the sea. The station was a ruin, broken glass, rusted rails, graffiti on every wall. But she was there, standing under the flickering light of an old lamppost, as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She didn't seem afraid. I did. "Why did Luca die?" I asked. She looked at me for a long time before answering. "Because he cared more about truth than survival." Her voice cracked when she said it, like she was holding back years of pain. Then she told me everything. Don Vieri had made a deal, not just with criminals, but with men in power. Politicians, bankers, judges. He didn't control the system. He was the system. He'd used Isabella's foundation to move people, witnesses, victims, enemies, into silence. And when she found out, he staged her death, made the world believe she was gone. "I tried to disappear," she said, "but you can't hide from someone who owns everything." Her eyes filled with tears. Luca was the only one who tried to help me. He copied the files. He thought we could expose them. He thought the world would care. She paused, looked at me. "And now you're here, Marco. Which means you've seen it too." I nodded. "I can help you." She shook her head. "No one can help me anymore. You should leave." But I couldn't. Because in that moment, as I looked into her eyes, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just running from Don Vieri. She was running from a truth, so dark that even he couldn't control it anymore. We heard the sound at the same time, an engine, close, too close. Isabella froze. "They found us," she whispered. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back of the station. We ran through the tunnels, the echo of footsteps behind us. Voices shouted in Italian. Flashlights cut through the dark. We turned a corner, and then she stopped. "This is where we part ways," she said, breathless. "If you keep following me, they'll kill you too." I shook my head. "I can't just walk away." Her hand touched my face, gentle, fleeting. "You already know too much, Marco," she said. "And once you know, there's no way back." Then she disappeared into the dark. I stayed there for a long time after she was gone, listening, waiting. But all I heard was the sound of the ocean, crashing somewhere far beyond the tunnels. When I finally walked back to the surface, the lamppost was still flickering, and the night was completely still. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling. I had met the ghost of a woman who wasn't supposed to exist. And now I carried her secret. That was the night I understood what Luca meant when he said, "They know." Because the moment you touch the truth in this world, it touches you back. I still remember the smell of rain that night. It was heavy, cold, and carried the kind of silence that makes you feel watched, even when you're alone. My name is Ethan Rourke, and if you're hearing this, it means the truth finally made its way out. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand why we couldn't walk away once we found out what we did. It started as a game. At least, that's what Mia called it. Mia Alvarez was the kind of woman who could make trouble look like an adventure. She worked with me at the newspaper, the Ledger. We were both investigative reporters, chasing stories about corruption, corporate crime, and political lies. But nothing had prepared us for Leonardo Moretti, the man everyone in the underworld called the Ghost. Moretti was the most feared mafia boss in the city, a businessman by day, a phantom by night. No one knew how deep his power went, or how many lives he had ruined. And for years, every attempt to expose him ended the same way: silence, or a body in the river. But Mia didn't care about that. She found something that could change everything. It was a set of financial records, buried inside a shell company that led to Moretti's empire. Offshore accounts, false charities, money laundering, the usual cocktail of crime and deceit. But there was more, something darker. When she showed me the documents, I remember my stomach twisting. There were names, people who were supposed to be dead, people who had vanished years ago, suddenly reappearing in Moretti's secret accounts. And one name stood out: Isabella Moretti. His wife, dead for over a decade. What if she's not dead? Mia whispered that night, her voice trembling. What if she never was? That question was the spark that burned everything we'd built. We started digging, chasing whispers in the dark. Old files, abandoned properties, former associates who didn't want to talk. Every step brought us closer and deeper into the shadow Moretti cast. But with every answer came a warning. Anonymous calls, cars parked outside our apartments, a black envelope left on Mia's doorstep with a single word inside. Stop. She laughed. I didn't. Because something in me already knew. Once you look into the eyes of a monster like Moretti, there's no turning back. Then came the night at the docks. That's when everything changed. Mia had a source, someone inside Moretti's organization. She said he had proof of what happened to Isabella. We were supposed to meet him at Pier 47 after midnight. I begged her not to go, but Mia, she was never the kind of person who ran from danger. I can still hear the echo of our footsteps on the wet wood, the fog so thick you could taste it. Then a shadow moved behind the crates. "Ethan," a voice whispered. "Is that you?" It was a man. Nervous. Shaking. He handed Mia a small flash drive and said, "If he knows I talked." A shot cut him off. The sound of it split the night in half. He dropped at our feet, a crimson bloom spreading across his chest. Mia screamed, but I pulled her down behind the crates. My heart was pounding, so hard I could barely think. Then I saw him, Leonardo Moretti, standing just a few meters away, his gun still smoking. He didn't say a word. He just looked at us, like a wolf watching its prey, and smiled. That smile, I still see it in my nightmares. We ran. Somehow we made it out alive, but from that night on, our lives were never the same. Because what was on that flash drive was something no one was ever supposed to see. Something that tied Moretti's empire not just to murder and money, but to the disappearance of his own wife, and a secret that could burn down half the city. And as I stared at the files on my laptop hours later, one thought kept echoing in my mind. When we learned the Mafia boss's secret, there was no way back. The screen flickered in front of me, lighting up the small apartment in pale blue. It was 3:47 in the morning. Mia sat on my couch, her hands trembling around a mug of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Neither of us had said a word since we escaped the docks. The flash drive was still in my hand. A tiny piece of metal, small enough to fit on a keychain, yet heavy enough to destroy lives. When I finally slid it into my laptop, I felt my stomach twist again. A folder appeared, named simply Isabella. Inside were dozens of video files, scanned documents, and photographs. Most of them were dated from 12 years ago, the year Isabella Moretti supposedly died in a car accident. I clicked the first file. It was grainy footage, a hospital room, sterile and white. Isabella sat on a bed, pale, fragile, but alive. Her eyes darted nervously toward the door, and then to the camera. "Please," she whispered. "If you find this, he's not who you think he is." Then the video cut out. Mia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "She's alive, Ethan." She was alive. I didn't answer. My mind was racing. If Isabella had survived, and Moretti had hidden it, why? What was he protecting, or covering up? I opened the next file. Medical reports. Fake death certificates. Transfer documents under false names. It looked like someone had been moving her from one private facility to another, year after year. Then came a file marked with a single date, October 3rd, 2017. That was the day she was officially declared dead. But the last line in the report made my blood run cold. Patient transferred to Facility 09 under Directive Project Umbra. Umbra, Mia murmured. That means shadow. Exactly. And suddenly, everything made sense. Moretti's empire wasn't just built on fear and money. It was built on control, on secrets buried so deep, the world would never find them. And somehow, Isabella was part of it. Mia leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, do you think she's still alive?" I looked at her, and for the first time since that night, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Not fear, determination. "If she is," I said quietly, "we're going to find her." But what neither of us knew was that they were already watching us. 2 days later, I went to the office, or at least, what was left of it. When I walked into the ledger, it felt wrong. Too quiet, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. My editor's door was closed, blinds drawn. People avoided my gaze. Something was off. When I got to my desk, my computer was gone. My files gone. Even the printed notes I'd hidden under the drawer were missing. Then I saw the envelope, plain white, with my name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a single piece of paper. "Walk away, Mr. Rourke. You have 3 days." There was no signature, no mark, just the faint scent of cigarette smoke, the kind Moretti was known for. Mia called an hour later, panic in her voice. Someone had broken into her apartment. Nothing stolen, just her laptop missing, and a single rose left on her pillow. That's when I knew this wasn't a warning. It was a message. They were letting us know we see you. We can reach you. Anytime. That night, Mia came to my place again. She looked exhausted but defiant. They want us to back off, she said, pacing the floor. But what if this is bigger than we think? What if Moretti isn't just hiding her? What if she's being used? Used? I asked. She stopped pacing and stared at me. Project Umbra, Ethan. What if it's not just about money? What if Isabella found out something about his business? Something he'd kill to protect? Her words hit me like a storm. Because deep down, I already knew she was right. I opened one of the hidden backups I'd made. A mirror of the files from the flash drive. Among the documents, I found encrypted folders, some labeled U09, others with random letters. I managed to open one. Inside were transaction logs, huge sums of money transferred to medical facilities, research labs, and something called the Arcadian Foundation. And buried in the metadata, coordinates. A remote site, just outside the city. Mia leaned closer. What is that? I didn't answer. Because in that moment, I realized what it meant. That's where Isabella was taken. And if she was still alive, if she'd been hidden for all these years, then we were about to uncover something that could bring Moretti's empire crashing down. But there was one thing I didn't tell Mia. The final video file I hadn't opened yet. It was labeled for Ethan Rourke. Someone had made it for me. I hovered my mouse over it, my heart pounding. But before I could click, there was a loud bang. 3 knocks on my door. Mia froze. I reached for the nearest object. A lamp, useless, but all I had. Who is it? I called out. Silence. Then a familiar voice through the wood. Mr. Rourke. We need to talk. It was Moretti's man. The same voice from the docks. And that was the moment I understood. This wasn't just about a story anymore. It wasn't about justice, or truth, or headlines. It was about survival. Because once we learned the Mafia boss's secret, there was no way back. The first thing I noticed was the way the knocking stopped. Not abruptly, but deliberately. Like whoever was on the other side wanted to remind me they were in control. Mia stood frozen beside the couch, her eyes locked on the door. I could hear the faint hum of the city outside, the sound of rain tapping against the window, but in that moment, everything felt distant. Muted. Then the voice came again. Calm. Deep. Dangerous. Mr. Rourke. I know you're in there. I didn't answer. My hand was still on the lamp, as if that useless piece of metal could somehow protect us from whatever waited outside. Open the door, the voice said. We just want to talk. Talk. Yeah. That's what people like him always said before the silence came. I glanced at Mia. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. She mouthed, don't. And for once, I listened. But then came a sound that made my stomach drop, the click of a key sliding into the lock. They had a key. I grabbed Mia's wrist and pulled her toward the back of the apartment. The fire escape, I whispered. We moved fast, quiet, like ghosts. The door creaked behind us, and a voice called out from the living room. Mr. Rourke, you really should have opened the door. We slipped through the kitchen window, just as footsteps echoed across the floor inside. The rain hit us like cold needles as we climbed down the fire escape, our shoes sliding on the rusted metal. From below, I saw a shadow move inside my apartment. 2 men, one tall and broad, the same silhouette from the docks. The other thinner, holding something that glinted under the light. A gun. We didn't wait to see more. By the time we reached the alley, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. We ran, past dumpsters, puddles, and the yellow glow of streetlights that seemed too bright for that kind of darkness. When we finally stopped, 2 blocks away, Mia turned to me. They know where you live. I know. And if they found you, they'll find me. I know that too. For a moment, neither of us said a word. The rain kept falling, washing the blood and fear off the streets, but not off us. Then Mia said the one thing I didn't want to hear. We can't hide, Ethan. We have to go after them. We spent the next hours in an old motel on the east side, the kind of place where no one asked for ID, and the walls smelled like mold and regret. I was still shaking. Not from the cold, but from the realization that we'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Mia sat on the bed, staring at the flash drive. You didn't open the last file, she said. No. Why not? I looked at her. Because it was addressed to me. And whoever sent it knew I'd find it. That means they're part of this. Maybe even inside the ledger. Her eyes narrowed. You think someone at the newspaper? I don't know. But Moretti's reach goes further than we thought. He's got politicians, cops, businessmen, maybe even journalists. Maybe that's how he knew we had the files. Mia leaned back against the headboard. Then we're already dead, aren't we? I didn't answer. Because deep down, I wasn't sure if she was wrong. At dawn, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the small motel desk, the flash drive plugged into my laptop, the cursor hovering over that final file. For Ethan Rourke. I clicked it. The screen went black. For a moment, I thought it was corrupted. Then a voice started to play. A woman's voice. Weak, trembling. Ethan, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it out. Mia sat up instantly. Who is that? I knew before she finished the sentence. Isabella Moretti. Her face appeared on the screen, older than the hospital footage, but unmistakable. Her eyes darted nervously to the side, like she was afraid someone was watching. My husband, he's not who you think. He's working on something, a project he calls Umbra. They're using people. Experiments, disappearances, even his own family. I tried to stop him. I tried to tell the police. But there's no one left to trust. She leaned closer to the camera, whispering now. Ethan, if you're still at the ledger, there's a file in the archives. A blue folder marked 09. It's proof. But be careful. If you find it, he'll come for you. He always does. Then the screen went static. Mia stared at me. She knew your name. I know. But how? She recorded that years ago. I didn't answer. Because the truth was clawing at my mind. There was no way she could have known who I was back then. Unless Moretti had planned all of this long before we ever started digging. Maybe he wanted me to find it. We drove to the ledger later that morning. The office was quiet. Too quiet for a weekday. When I stepped inside, I saw my editor, Howard, standing near the archives room. He looked pale, nervous. Ethan, he said. We need to talk. Mia froze. He's one of them. I wasn't sure, but when Howard stepped aside, I saw the truth in the reflection of the glass door behind him. A man in a dark coat, waiting, watching us. It was Moretti's enforcer. Howard's voice cracked. They said if I helped you, they'd kill my son. And before I could say anything, the sound of a gun echoed through the hall. Howard collapsed. Mia screamed. I grabbed her arm and we ran again. Through the office, down the stairwell into the street. We didn't stop until the city swallowed us whole. And as we disappeared into the noise and chaos of the crowd, I realized something horrifying. We were no longer the ones investigating Moretti. He was hunting us. That night, I stared out the motel window, watching the lights flicker in the distance. Mia slept restlessly beside me, her breathing shallow, her mind still trapped in the nightmare we were living. And for the first time, I admitted it to myself, not out loud, not even in a whisper. We were in too deep, too far gone, because once we learned the Mafia boss's secret, there truly was no way back. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Howard's face, that look of terror right before the shot. He wasn't a good man, not really. But he didn't deserve to die like that. No one did. The city outside the motel window felt colder than usual. The rain hadn't stopped, and it painted everything in silver streaks, the cars, the pavement, even the neon signs flickering over the street. Mia sat by the window, her knees pulled up to her chest, a blanket draped over her shoulders. She hadn't said a word since we escaped the ledger. The sound of the gunshot was still echoing between us. We can't stop now, I finally said. She turned, her eyes hollow. Howard's dead, Ethan. They killed him in front of us. What else do you think they'll do? I think, I said quietly, that's exactly why we have to finish this. I opened my laptop again, replaying Isabella Moretti's last words. There's a file in the archives. A blue folder marked 09. It's proof. But the archives were sealed now. Crime scene tape, police everywhere. We couldn't just walk in and take it. Mia stood, pacing the small room. Then how? You saw what happened. Moretti owns the police, the press, everyone. I stared at the screen. Not everyone. There was one person left who might still help us. Noah Vance, an old tech reporter who'd been forced out of the ledger years ago after exposing a senator's secret accounts. He owed me a favor. And if anyone could get us inside the system without being seen, it was him. We met Noah in an abandoned print shop downtown, a relic from the days when news still came on paper. He looked older, grayer, but his eyes still had that spark of rebellion. "Jesus, Ethan," he said when he saw me. "I heard about Howard. You've got half the city looking for you." "I need access to the archives," I said. "Off the grid. No logs, no trace." He frowned. "You're asking me to break into the ledger server. You realize that's a death sentence if they catch me, right?" "Then make sure they don't." Mia stepped forward. "Please, Noah. It's about Moretti. We have proof of what he's hiding. A project called Umbra." At the mention of that name, Noah's expression changed. He went silent for a long moment, then said, "You're not the first ones to mention Umbra, but you might be the last still breathing." He led us to a back room cluttered with old computers and half-dead monitors. Dust everywhere. The hum of machines filled the silence as he started typing. "Umbra," he said, not looking up, "wasn't just a project. It was a government experiment, canceled years ago. Supposedly. Supposedly?" I asked. He nodded. Black sites, human testing, illegal surveillance. The kind of thing no one wants to admit exists. But if Moretti's tied to it, that means it never stopped. It just went underground. The thought sent a chill through me. If Isabella had discovered something like that, it explained everything. Her disappearance, the fake death, the cover-up. After what felt like hours, Noah looked up. "Got it. Accessing the ledger's internal archive now. But you better hurry. Once I open this port, their system will trace me in 5 minutes, tops." The screen blinked. Lines of code scrolled past like falling rain. Then he stopped typing. "There," he said. "File 09. Blue folder. You're in." I took control of the keyboard. The folder opened, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. It wasn't just articles or notes. It was a classified dossier, government-sealed, digitally stamped with the insignia of the Department of Internal Security. Inside were scanned documents, experiment reports, psychological profiles, photos of missing people. And in the corner of every page, the same mark, UMBRA. But the photos, they were worse. Mia gasped. "Oh my God!" Dozens of faces stared back at us. Men, women, even children. Some were marked deceased. Others transferred. And there, in the middle of them, was Isabella Moretti. Her profile listed under Subject 09. Project Code, Umbra, Neural Conditioning Trials. Status active. Active. "She's still alive," Mia whispered. "He's still using her." But before I could process that, a message popped up on the screen. A new line of code flashing red. "Trace detected." Noah cursed. "They're in the system. They're tracking us." He started typing furiously, trying to sever the connection. But another line appeared, right below the first. "We see you, Mr. Rourke." The cursor blinked once, then the entire screen went black. We stared in silence. Then Noah turned to me, his face pale. "You need to leave. Now." "What about you?" Mia asked. He shook his head. "They already know I helped you. I'll buy you time." I hesitated. "Noah." "Go," he shouted. We ran. Out the back door, through the alley. Behind us, I heard the sound of engines. Black SUVs pulling up, doors slamming, boots hitting pavement. Mia and I barely made it to the car before the gunfire started. Bullets shattered the windows of the print shop, glass raining down like ice. By the time we reached the next street, the whole building was in flames. Noah was gone. We drove in silence for nearly an hour. The city faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by the dark stretch of highway and the endless hum of tires on wet asphalt. Mia finally spoke. "He died for nothing." I gripped the wheel tighter. "No. He died to show us the truth." Because now there was no more doubt. Moretti wasn't just a crime lord. He was the face of something much bigger, something that reached beyond the Mafia, beyond the city. He was the bridge between organized crime and organized power, and we had just kicked down the door to the one secret they couldn't afford to lose. As the dawn began to rise, we stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Mia stepped out to get coffee while I checked my phone. One new message. Unknown number. It was a video. I pressed play. The image was shaky. A dark room, a single chair, and a woman sitting in it. Her face bruised, her wrist bound. It was Isabella. She looked straight at the camera. "Ethan Rourke," she said softly. "You shouldn't have looked for me." Then the feed cut off. I just stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. Because for the first time since this all began, I wasn't sure if Isabella Moretti was the victim anymore. That was the night I realized something I should have known all along. The truth doesn't set you free. It traps you. And once you've seen it, once you've learned the Mafia boss's secret, there's no way back. Her face wouldn't leave my mind. That video played over and over in my head, even after I deleted it. The way Isabella Moretti looked into the camera, like she was staring straight at me through me. Her voice was calm, deliberate, too deliberate. "You shouldn't have looked for me." Those words carried weight. They weren't a warning. They were a verdict. Mia sat in the passenger seat, silent. She hadn't said a thing since I showed her the video. The gas station lights faded behind us as we drove into the early morning mist. The world felt empty, the kind of silence that happens after something irreversible. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan, that wasn't a hostage video." I glanced at her. "What do you mean?" She wasn't scared. She wasn't pleading. She wanted you to see it. I didn't answer. Because she was right. Isabella's eyes didn't show fear. They showed something else. Control. We stopped at a rest area near the state border. The air was cold, heavy with fog. Mia got out first, walking toward a row of vending machines, her silhouette dissolving in the gray light. I stayed in the car, pulling up the backup data Noah had helped us recover. Most of it was corrupted after the trace, but one file had survived, a text log, incomplete, labeled UMBRA anti-alpha. It contained fragments of messages, mostly coded transmissions. But one line stood out, repeated over and over. Subject 09, primary controller initiated. Controller. The more I read, the colder I felt. Umbra wasn't just experimenting on people. They were conditioning them, rewriting identities, using trauma, drugs, and psychological manipulation, turning people into something else. But the most disturbing part was the timestamp. The last log entry was recent, just 3 days ago. Mia came back with 2 coffees. "Anything?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "She's not just alive. She's part of it." Mia froze, cup halfway to her lips. "You think Isabella's running Umbra now?" "I don't know. But that video, it wasn't a warning from Moretti. It was a message from her. Why would she send it to you?" That question sat between us like a loaded gun. I didn't want to answer it, because deep down I already knew. I met Isabella Moretti once. Years ago, back when I was still a rookie journalist, before the corruption, before the fear. I was covering a charity gala for the Ledger. She was there, radiant, untouchable, wearing a white dress and a smile that could stop time. Leonardo Moretti stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on her back, possessive, protective. She looked right at me once, across the room. Just a glance. And for a moment, I felt something strange. Recognition. But we'd never met before. At least, that's what I told myself. Now, years later, her eyes in that video carry the same familiarity, only colder. Mia noticed my silence. "You knew her, didn't you?" I hesitated. "I saw her once. A long time ago. And you didn't think to mention that?" "It didn't matter then." "Well, it matters now, Ethan," she snapped. "She sent that message to you. Not to the police, not to the media, you." "Why?" I didn't have an answer. But the unease in my stomach was growing into something else, dread. We drove again, following the coordinates Noah had extracted before he died. The ones buried in the Umbra files. They led us north, past the city, into the woods. Miles of winding roads, no signs, no lights, just trees swallowing the horizon. By the time the GPS died, we were deep in nowhere. That's when we saw it. A compound, hidden behind a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. No markings, no guards in sight, but cameras everywhere. Mia whispered, "This is it." I killed the engine and stepped out. The forest was silent except for the hum of electricity running through the fence. I moved closer, crouching near a maintenance panel. The locks were old, military grade, but manual. Mia watched as I worked. "How do you even know how to do that?" I forced a bitter smile. "You'd be surprised what a journalist learns when people start trying to kill him. It took minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, the lock clicked open. We slipped inside. The compound was larger than it looked, several buildings connected by concrete corridors. Everything sterile, industrial, humming faintly. Inside the first structure, we found rows of metal doors, each labeled with a number. Facility 09, Mia whispered. I felt the chill crawl up my spine. We passed through a long hallway until we reached a control room filled with monitors. Most showed static, but one feed was active. A room with a single chair, the same one from the video. The timestamp read live feed. Mia leaned closer. Ethan, that's her. Isabella sat motionless, staring straight into the camera again, as if she knew we were watching. And then she spoke. Welcome back, Ethan. Mia gasped. She can see us. Before she could finish, the monitors around us flickered to life. Every screen now showed her face, multiplied, cold, perfect, unblinking. You've been looking for me, she said softly. Now you've found me. The sound came from the speakers around us, her voice echoing through the hall. Mia's hand tightened around my arm. We need to get out of here. But the doors behind us had already sealed. Lights flickered overhead as footsteps echoed from the corridor. Someone was coming. A group of men in tactical gear appeared at the far end of the hall, their faces hidden, their weapons raised. I reached for Mia, but before we could move, a voice, calm, male familiar, came through the intercom. Mr. Rourke, Ms. Alvarez, my wife has been expecting you. Moretti. The screens shifted again. Isabella's expression changed, a faint, almost sorrowful smile. He doesn't understand, Ethan. None of them do. Then the feed cut to black. The soldiers closed in, and as they surrounded us, the last thing I saw was the reflection of my own face on the darkened monitor, pale, hollow, and terrified. Because I finally understood. We hadn't just uncovered the secret. We'd walked straight into it. That night marked the end of everything I thought I knew about truth, lies, and monsters. Because sometimes, they're not hiding in the dark. Sometimes, they're the ones who invite you in. And once you've learned the Mafia boss's secret, there really is no way back. I never believed in fate. Not until that night. Because standing in that cold, fluorescent room, surrounded by armed men and the echo of Isabella's voice, I realized something horrifying. We weren't hunting the truth anymore. The truth was hunting us. The men didn't shoot. They didn't shout. They just closed in, moving with silent precision, too coordinated to be ordinary guards. Mia's hand was trembling in mine. I could feel the pulse racing through her wrist, the same rhythm as my own. Then, through the speakers, Moretti's voice returned. Calm. Controlled. Mr. Rourke, I admire persistence. But curiosity, it's a dangerous habit. I stepped forward, trying to sound braver than I felt. What do you want from us? Want? He gave a soft, almost amused laugh. You already gave me what I wanted. Your attention. I could hear the faint hum of machinery around us, the static of a surveillance system alive with unseen eyes. Moretti's words echoed through the hall like a sermon. You and your partner have been very busy. Files, leaks, stolen footage, all quite impressive. But you never asked the right question. Mia's voice cracked. What question? Why you, Ethan? My throat went dry. The lights flickered again, and suddenly, the room around us began to change. Panels sliding open, revealing glass walls and the silhouettes of other rooms. Behind the glass were people, men and women strapped to chairs, wires running from their temples, their eyes blank and lifeless. Mia covered her mouth. Oh my God! I took a step closer, my voice shaking. What is this? Legacy, Moretti said softly. My wife's design. Your story began long before you wrote your first article. The words didn't make sense at first. But then I saw it. A screen in the corner, displaying my face. My photo. My name. Subject 09, primary control candidate. My knees almost gave out. No, that's not. Mia turned toward me, her eyes wide, searching mine for an answer. Ethan, what is he talking about? I don't know. I shouted, my voice breaking. I swear to you I don't. Oh, but you do, Moretti's voice whispered. You felt it. The missing years. The dreams that weren't dreams. The face you couldn't remember but always feared. He paused. Isabella remembered. The guards approached. One of them stepped forward with a syringe. Mia tried to run, but they grabbed her, too fast. I fought back, elbowing one, but another slammed the butt of his rifle into my ribs. Pain exploded through me, and before I could breathe, the needle was in my neck. The world tilted. Everything became sound and light. When I woke up, I was in a different room. A single light overhead, metal restraints around my wrists. My head was pounding. For a moment, I thought I was alone, until I saw her. Isabella. She sat in the corner, calm as ever, her white dress immaculate. "Hello, Ethan," she said softly. "You shouldn't have come back." My voice was hoarse. "You're supposed to be dead." A faint smile. I was. In every way that mattered. I tried to pull free, but the cuffs were magnetized to the table. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes softened. "I want you to remember." "Remember what?" She stood and walked toward me, her heels echoing on the floor. "What you were before you became Ethan Rourke." I shook my head. "You're insane." "No," she whispered. "I'm free." She placed a tablet in front of me, activating a video. It showed a lab, sterile, humming with machines. On one of the tables, a man was strapped down, unconscious. Electrodes covered his skull. Then the camera angle shifted, and I saw his face. Mine. I felt the air leave my lungs. The man in the video screamed as light filled the room, his vitals spiking, brainwaves flaring across the monitors. Then his body went still. A voice off-screen said, "Memory transfer complete. Subject 09 stable. Initiate new identity protocol." The video ended. I stared at the screen, shaking. "That's not real. That's not possible." Isabella leaned in close, her perfume faint but intoxicating. "Do you still think this is journalism, Ethan? That you're chasing a story? You are the story." I wanted to scream, to deny it, but fragments were surfacing in my mind. Flashes. Needles. Voices in the dark. A hospital room that wasn't a hospital. Someone saying, "He'll never remember." Mia's voice snapped me back. "Ethan!" She was being dragged into the room by two guards, fighting, furious. "Let him go, you psychopaths!" she shouted. Moretti entered behind her, immaculate as ever, his suit spotless, his eyes cold. "Let him go," he repeated. "My dear, if I did that, he'd vanish all over again." He looked at me, almost pitying. "You were supposed to stay hidden, Ethan. You had a chance at peace. But you came back, and now the cycle continues." Mia tried to reach for me, but Moretti raised a hand. "Take her to containment. I'll deal with her later." "No!" I shouted, straining against the cuffs. "Don't touch her." Isabella watched silently, her face unreadable. And for the first time I saw it, the flicker of guilt in her eyes. The guards dragged Mia out, her screams echoing down the corridor. I turned to Isabella, desperate. "Please, don't let him hurt her." She looked away. "I can't stop him anymore. He thinks he's in control, but he's just another part of the design." "What design?" I demanded. "The Umbra program," she whispered. "A project meant to preserve consciousness, to transfer the human mind beyond death. You were one of the first." My voice broke. "You're saying I'm not me?" She met my eyes. "You're the only version of you that survived." Footsteps thundered outside. Alarms began to blare. Somewhere, chaos had erupted. Shouts, gunfire, the sound of glass shattering. Isabella turned toward the door, then back at me. "This place won't hold much longer. If you want to live, find her. She's your anchor." "My what?" "She's the only thing that kept you human." Before I could ask anything else, she reached down, pressed a button on the cuffs, and they released. Then she handed me a small drive. "This will show you everything," she said. "But once you see it, there's no way back." I looked at her one last time. "Why help me?" She smiled faintly. "Because once I believe in the same lie you do, that truth can set us free." And then she was gone. I stumbled into the corridor, the alarm still screaming. Smoke filled the air. Bodies, guards, scientists, lay scattered. Somewhere down the hall, Mia's voice echoed. "Ethan! Hurry!" I ran. Every step burned. Every breath was fire. But for the first time, I wasn't chasing a story anymore. I was chasing myself. And as we escaped into the dark forest outside, the facility behind us collapsing in flames, one thought burned in my mind. I wasn't the man who discovered the Mafia boss's secret. I was the secret. We didn't stop running until the forest swallowed us completely. Smoke from the burning compound curled through the trees, turning the moonlight into a haze of silver and ash. Mia collapsed beside a fallen trunk, gasping for air, her face streaked with dirt and blood. "Ethan!" she whispered, clutching her side. "What the hell was that place?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to. All I could hear was Isabella's voice echoing in my head. "You were one of the first." The flash drive in my pocket felt heavier than a gun. Whatever truth it carried, I wasn't sure I wanted to see it. We found an abandoned cabin deep in the woods just before dawn. The roof sagged, the windows were broken, and the air inside smelled of old pine and dust. But it was shelter, and right then, that was all we needed. Mia built a small fire while I tried to calm the storm in my mind. She kept glancing at me, the same way someone looks at a stranger they once thought they knew. Finally, she broke the silence. "Ethan, talk to me. What do they do to you in there?" I stared into the flames, watching them twist and dance. "I don't know. I saw things. Files. Videos. They said I was part of some experiment." "Experiment," she repeated. "Like what?" "Brainwashing." "Worse," I said quietly. "They called it Umbra. Some kind of mind transfer program. They said I wasn't the original." She blinked, confused. "The original what?" "Me." The words hung between us like smoke. Mia shook her head, refusing to believe it. "No, that's not possible. I've known you for years, Ethan. I'm what?" I cut her off, my voice trembling. "A man who doesn't remember his childhood, who has nightmares of places he's never been, who doesn't exist in any public record before 8 years ago." She stared at me, speechless. "Maybe I've been a ghost all along," I whispered. After a long silence, she reached into her bag and handed me my laptop, the one we thought we'd lost. "I managed to grab this before they caught me," she said softly. "Whatever's on that drive, maybe it's time to know." My hands shook as I inserted the flash drive. The screen flickered, loading encrypted files one by one. A folder appeared, Project Umbra /subject 09/Ethan Rourke. Mia leaned closer. "That's you." I opened the first video. It was a lab, the same one from before. A team of scientists surrounded a body on a metal table covered in electrodes. A monitor displayed brain activity, spikes of data, unstable but alive. Then a voice spoke from off-camera. "Subject recovery successful. Identity imprinting complete. Emotional anchor installed. MIA Alvarez." My blood froze. Mia whispered, "What the hell does that mean?" I scrolled through the files. Reports, neuromaps, recordings of psychological tests. Every one of them mentioned the same phrase. Anchor maintains stability. Without anchor, subject regresses to core pattern. I looked at her, my throat tight. "You're my anchor." She took a step back, shaking her head. "No, that can't be." But it made sense now. Why I was drawn to her. Why I trusted her even when everything else fell apart. They programmed me to. The realization hit like a hammer. My memories, my choices, maybe none of it was real. I slammed the laptop shut and stood. They built me to find her. To get close. To retrieve whatever she knew about Umbra. And when it was done, they wiped me clean. Mia's eyes filled with tears. "You're saying they used me?" "I don't know," I whispered. "Maybe they used both of us." Outside, a branch snapped. We froze. Through the cracked window, I saw movement, shadows between the trees. Mia whispered, "They found us." I grabbed the laptop and the drive, stuffing them into my backpack. Back door. Now. We ran into the woods again, the firelight fading behind us. The night was cold and wet, the mud sucking at our shoes. Voices echoed in the distance, men shouting, dogs barking. We reached a ravine and slid down the slope, tumbling through leaves and branches until we landed in the shallow water below. The cold bit into my bones, but I pulled Mia up and pushed forward. After a while, the voices faded. Only the sound of the river remained. We hid under an old bridge, catching our breath. Mia looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "What are we gonna do?" I looked out into the darkness. We find out who built Umbra. We find the original Ethan Rourke, if he ever existed. She frowned. You mean there could be more of you? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to know. By dawn, we reached the outskirts of the next town, a forgotten place on the map, half of its buildings abandoned. We found shelter in an old motel. No cameras, no questions. While Mia slept, I opened the laptop again. One last file had appeared, timestamped automatically at the moment I plugged in the drive. It was a message. From Isabella. If you're seeing this, it means you survived. You were never supposed to. The system failed. The others didn't make it. But you were different. You bonded too deeply with your anchor. That's why you're still human. Her voice broke slightly. Moretti thinks he controls Umbra, but he's just another subject. He doesn't know it yet. Find the original server, the core. Destroy it, and maybe you'll end this. Then her image flickered. Ethan, if you ever remember who you were before all this, forgive me. The video ended. I sat there in the dark, the weight of her words pressing down like a mountain. Forgive her? For what? Mia stirred beside me, mumbling my name in her sleep. I turned to her, the only thing that still felt real. And for the first time since it all began, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear. Not confusion. Resolve. If Umbra created me, then I would be the one to end it. Morning came gray and cold. We packed in silence, moving fast. There was one final address in the files, a remote data facility hidden beneath an old church on the outskirts of the city. The coordinates glowed on the screen like a challenge. That was where it began. And that was where it would end. As we left the motel, I took one last look at Mia. She smiled faintly, trying to be strong. You think we'll make it? She asked. I adjusted the strap of my bag, my voice quiet but certain. We don't have to make it. We just have to finish it. As the road stretched before us, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, and for a fleeting moment, I felt human again. But deep down, I knew the truth. What was waiting for us at that church wasn't salvation. It was the awakening. And once we reached it, there would be no way back. The old church stood like a ghost on the edge of a city, forgotten, half swallowed by the forest. Its bell tower leaned to one side, and ivy crawled up the stone like veins. The sign out front was so weathered you could barely read the name, St. Dymphna's. The place had been abandoned for decades, but the coordinates from Isabella's message didn't lie. Somewhere beneath this ruin was the heart of Project Umbra, the core. Mia and I parked the car a mile away, approaching on foot through the mist. The morning light barely touched the treetops. Everything felt still. Too still. She glanced at me, whispering, You sure about this? No, I said honestly. But if we don't end this now, it'll never stop. She nodded, clutching her backpack. Inside were the files, the flash drive, and what little hope we had left. The church doors groaned as I pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the faint scent of burnt wax. Stained glass windows cast fractured light across rows of broken pews. The altar had collapsed, revealing a gaping hole in the floor, a staircase descending into darkness. Mia exhaled slowly. Guess we found our entrance. We went down. The stairs were narrow and cold, leading us deep beneath the ruins. The air grew dense, mechanical, faint vibrations beneath our feet. This wasn't a basement. It was a facility. At the bottom, the passage opened into a steel corridor lined with flickering lights. Symbols marked the walls, the same sigil we'd seen in Umbra's files, a circle of thorns enclosing an eye. Mia whispered, They built all this under a church? Seems fitting, I muttered. They wanted to play God. We followed the corridor until it split into 3 paths. A faint hum came from the center one, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. That's where we went. The hallway led to a vast chamber, circular and silent. In the center stood a massive cylindrical machine pulsing with light. Cables snaked across the floor, feeding into it from every direction. Rows of monitors surrounded it, most showing static. But one displayed a line of text, repeating endlessly. Core status! Active. Memory link engaged. Mia stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. Is this it? The core, I said. The source of every transfer, every subject. She approached one of the terminals, fingers flying over the keys. I can try to shut it down. If I overload the main conduit, it might collapse the system. Before I could answer, a voice echoed through the chamber, smooth, deep, familiar. You're too late. We turned. Leonardo Moretti stepped from the shadows, dressed in black, a pistol in his hand. His expression was calm, too calm. Behind him, a group of armed men fanned out, blocking the exits. Mia froze. You were supposed to be dead. Moretti smiled faintly. Death is a flexible concept in my world. I stepped between them. You're part of Umbra, aren't you? He tilted his head. Part of it. I am Umbra. Every mind, every subject, every experiment began with me. Isabella merely carried out my will. I clenched my fists. You're lying. She said you were one of the subjects. His smile faded. She told you that, did she? She always was sentimental. He took a step closer, lowering the gun slightly. You think you were my creation, Ethan? No. You were hers. She copied you, her lover, her failure, her guilt. But she couldn't let you die. So she built a machine to bring you back. My stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Moretti's eyes burned like ice. She created you from the real Ethan Rourke, the journalist who tried to expose me 12 years ago. You died in an explosion meant for her. She rebuilt you from memory, from fragments of consciousness she extracted before your body was gone. Mia looked at me, horrified. Ethan! I couldn't breathe. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I died. Moretti nodded slowly. And she made you believe you were alive. She built your past, your identity, even your feelings. Especially for her. He turned his gaze to Mia. You were her insurance, the emotional anchor that kept him stable. A safeguard. Mia stepped back, her voice shaking. No, that's not true. But tears were already in her eyes. And deep down I knew it was. I took a step toward Moretti. Why tell me this? He raised his pistol again. Because it's over. The system's collapsing. Isabella's gone, and soon you will be too. But if you help me extract the remaining data from your mind, I can preserve what's left of you before the core burns it away. I laughed, cold, broken. You want to save me? After everything you did? He shrugged. Nothing personal. Just science. He pulled the trigger. The shot cracked through the chamber, but he missed. Mia had thrown herself against him, knocking the gun aside. It clattered across the floor as the guards lunged forward. I grabbed a fallen rifle and fired, short bursts, wild but enough to make them scatter. The sound of gunfire echoed off the metal walls. Sparks flew from the core as stray bullets hit the machinery. Mia screamed, Ethan! The console, if we overload it now, it'll destroy everything. I ran to the terminal, ignoring the chaos behind me. My fingers flew over the controls, following Isabella's notes burned into my memory. Override protocol. Manual ignition. Failsafe bypass. The core began to tremble, lights pulsing violently. Warning alarms filled the air. Moretti roared, shoving Mia aside and charging toward me. He tackled me to the ground, his hands around my throat. Do you have any idea what you are? He hissed. You're a copy. A reflection. You don't even exist without me. I clawed at his wrists, gasping. Maybe not, I choked out. But at least I remember who made me. I grabbed the power cable beside me and drove it into his chest. Electricity surged. Moretti screamed, a sound I'll never forget, as the current threw him backward, his body convulsing in white light. The room erupted. Mia was already at my side, dragging me toward the exit. The core's light grew brighter, louder, alive, as if it were screaming. Panels burst, wires snapped, and the floor began to crack beneath us. We ran up the corridor, the ground shaking. The staircase collapsed behind us, fire and light swallowing everything. As we burst through the church doors, a shockwave tore through the air. The entire structure imploded in a roar of dust and flame. We hit the ground hard, the world spinning. When I opened my eyes, all I could see was the sky, gray, endless. Mia was beside me, bleeding but breathing. It's over, she whispered. I wanted to believe her. But as the fire faded, I saw it, a flicker of light still glowing deep beneath the rubble. The core was still alive, and in that moment, something shifted inside me, a static whisper, faint but familiar. Ethan, it's not finished. Isabella's voice. Not in the air, In my head, Mia looked at me, terrified. What is it? I swallowed hard. It's her. She shook her head. Ethan, that's impossible. She's dead. I stared into the smoke, rising from the ruins. Maybe not. Maybe she never left. Because if what Moretti said was true, then Isabella wasn't just part of the system. She was the system. And somewhere in that dying machine, she was still waiting. When the smoke cleared, I realized I couldn't hear anything. No wind. No birds. Just the echo of my own breathing, slow, uneven. The church was gone. Nothing but a crater of blackened earth where it had stood. Mia was sitting beside me, her face streaked with soot, one hand pressed against her shoulder where a piece of shrapnel had grazed her. She looked up, eyes wide with disbelief. We did it, Ethan. It's gone. I wanted to answer, but I couldn't, because in that silence, I could feel something, a vibration deep in my skull. A pulse that didn't belong to my heartbeat. Ethan! It was faint, almost tender. Her voice. Isabella's voice. I froze. No, it couldn't be. She was gone, the facility destroyed, her body long dead. But the voice came again, clearer this time, as if whispering through electricity. You shouldn't have come here. Mia noticed my face pale. Ethan, what is it? I tried to shake it off. Nothing. Just ringing in my ears. But that was a lie, because when I closed my eyes, I saw flashes, fragments of light, of memory not my own. The lab, the chair, the hum of machines, and Isabella standing beside me, her eyes filled with regret. If you're hearing this, it means the core isn't dead. It means I'm still inside. I opened my eyes. The voice was inside my head, perfectly calm, perfectly clear. We found an old cabin a few miles away, half buried in the woods. It was falling apart, but it gave us shelter. Mia cleaned my wounds in silence while I tried to make sense of the impossible. When the night came, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, Isabella, flickering in the dark, like a reflection on broken glass. I whispered into the void, half crazy, "Why won't you let me go?" And she answered, "Because you were never meant to leave." I sat up, trembling. "What do you want from me?" "To finish what I started." Her voice echoed through my skull like wind through a tunnel. Project Umbra was never about control. It was about continuity, memory beyond death. I tried to bring you back, Ethan, but your mind was incomplete. I needed an anchor. That's why I copied myself into the core. My chest tightened. You're saying you're still alive inside me? Alive is the wrong word. But yes, what's left of me is entangled with you now. The system linked us the moment you touched it. Mia stirred beside me, half asleep, unaware of the war waging in my head. You don't have much time, Isabella whispered. When the core destabilizes, it will collapse everything, including you. But there's a failsafe. I closed my eyes. What kind of failsafe? A mirror node, a backup server hidden beneath the old harbor. It can extract what's left of both of us if you get there before sunrise. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the voice out of my skull. But a part of me, the part that still remembered her hand in mine, her laugh, her sorrow, wanted to believe she wasn't lying. Maybe, after all this, I needed to know the truth. By dawn, Mia was awake again, wrapping her arm with makeshift bandages. I told her we needed to move. To where? She asked. The harbor. There's something left of the project there, maybe a backup system. If we destroy it, we end this for good. She hesitated. You sure this isn't about her? I met her eyes, and for a long second, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, I don't know anymore. We drove through the fog toward the coast, the road cutting through gray hills and abandoned fields. The city was far behind us now, only the distant glow of the skyline visible through the mist. As we approached the docks, I felt it again, the static hum, stronger this time. Like something inside me was waking up. Every light we passed seemed to flicker as we went by. The car radio hissed, though it wasn't even turned on. And every few minutes, I heard her voice whispering coordinates, guiding us closer. Pier 9, under the storage yard. That's where it begins again. Mia gripped the steering wheel. You're hearing her again, aren't you? I didn't answer. When we reached the harbor, the fog was thick as smoke. Most of the warehouses were abandoned, their walls tagged and windows shattered. But one, the one she'd mentioned, still had power. A single light burned above the door. We crept inside, weapons ready. The floor was slick with oil, the air sharp with salt and rust. Rows of shipping containers formed a maze around us. Then I heard it, the low hum of machinery beneath the floor. We found the hatch hidden under a rusted tarp. I pried it open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "Ready?" I asked. Mia nodded, though fear flickered in her eyes. "Let's finish this." The air grew colder as we went down. Pipes ran along the walls, dripping condensation. The hum grew louder, vibrating in my bones. At the bottom, we stepped into a long chamber lit by pale blue light. Servers lined the walls, thousands of them, humming quietly like an endless heartbeat. In the center stood a glass capsule filled with faint mist, and inside it a silhouette, a woman. Mia gasped. "Oh my God!" I walked closer, the air trembling with static. Her face was half obscured by frost, but I knew that profile, that hair, that presence. Isabella, or what was left of her. The screen beside the capsule flickered to life, showing a single line of text. Isabella Core Link active. Then, her voice filled the room, soft, melodic, almost human again. "You found me." Mia stepped back. "Ethan, this is insane. She's alive in there." "Not alive," Isabella said. "Preserved. Waiting." I felt the static crawl under my skin. "Why? What do you want now?" "To finish the merge." "You're incomplete, Ethan. You were meant to carry both of us, the human and the design. Together, we were supposed to be the bridge between life and memory." Mia shook her head, furious. "He's not your experiment anymore. He's a person." Isabella's voice softened. "He's both. And he's dying." I looked down and realized she was right. My hands were trembling, flickering faintly, as if my body was losing coherence. "You don't have long," Isabella whispered. "If you don't link, you'll dissolve. You'll vanish." Mia grabbed my arm. "Ethan, don't listen to her." But Isabella's voice was in my mind again, gentle, pleading. "Please, if you merge with me, you'll survive. We both will. Don't let me fade alone." I stood between them, one voice calling from the world of the living, another from the abyss. And for the first time, I didn't know which one I belonged to. Mia's eyes filled with tears. "You said we'd end this, Ethan. That we'd destroy everything." I looked at Isabella's frozen form behind the glass, and I whispered, "Maybe I'm part of everything." The room trembled. The servers roared. The glass capsule began to open, and as white light poured from it, I stepped forward, toward her. The light swallowed everything. For a moment, I couldn't tell where my body ended and the air began. It felt like being dissolved, pulled apart molecule by molecule, until only thought remained. I heard her voice again. "Don't fight it, Ethan. Let go." I tried to open my eyes, but there were no eyes to open. Only a rush of memories flooding through me, hers and mine, colliding like waves. A child in a white room, laughing as she built machines out of scrap metal. The first time she met me, the real me, in that dim university lab. Our first night together, when she said she believed in eternity. The fire, my death, her grief, the experiment that brought me back. Every emotion, every decision, it wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light faded. I was back in the chamber on my knees. My body ached, trembling but real. The capsule was shattered, steam hissing from its seams. Mia was shouting my name, her voice distant, panicked. "Ethan, what did you do?" I tried to speak, but the words came out strange, layered, echoing. "She's here." Mia took a step back. "What do you mean she's here?" I looked at her, and in the reflection of her eyes I saw it, a faint glow pulsing beneath my skin, like electricity alive inside me. "He means we're here," Isabella said, but the voice came from my mouth. Mia's face went pale. "Oh my God!" It was like standing in two worlds at once. I could feel her thoughts brushing against mine, memories threading through every corner of my mind. Part of me wanted to scream, to tear her out, but another part felt peace. "You shouldn't be afraid," Isabella whispered inside me. "I'm not taking over. I'm becoming complete." Mia's voice shook. "This isn't you, Ethan. You're not you anymore." I stood slowly, my voice trembling with confusion and grief. Maybe I never was. The servers around us started to hum louder, reacting to the merge. Lights flickered. The ground vibrated. The system was rebooting itself, not dying but evolving. She's rebuilding the network through you, Mia shouted. If we don't shut it down now, she'll spread everywhere, through every system, every machine. No, Isabella said through me. It's not about control. It's survival. Mia ran to the main terminal, typing furiously. I can overload the servers again, this time for good. Pain shot through my head, a splitting agony. I saw flashes of code, electricity, and faces. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all the subjects of Project Umbra. Their consciousnesses were trapped inside, waiting to be freed. They're not ghosts, Isabella whispered. They're data, lives that never ended. If you destroy this, they'll all vanish. Mia turned toward me, eyes full of tears. Ethan, please, help me shut it down. Don't let her use you. I looked at the console, then at her, and then inside myself. For the first time, Isabella spoke softly, without manipulation. You can choose, Ethan. You always could. The room trembled again, sparks raining from the ceiling. The system was seconds from overloading on its own. I stepped toward the console, my thoughts spinning like a storm. Destroy the network, and end every trace of what she created. Or stabilize it, let her live, and give the others trapped inside a chance to exist again. Both choices meant losing something. Maybe everything. Mia screamed, Ethan, do it now. Isabella whispered, trust me. And for the briefest moment, time seemed to stop. I pressed a single key. The world exploded in light. But this time, it wasn't destruction, it was release. I felt the energy flow out through me, through the servers, through the ground itself. Not violent, peaceful, like 1,000 sighs exhaling at once. Mia shielded her eyes. What did you do? I smiled faintly, though tears burned my face. I didn't destroy it. I freed it. The chamber began to dissolve around us, metal turning to dust, light dissolving into mist. All the voices, all the trapped minds, rising into the air like stars. One by one, they faded, not erased, but liberated. And then I felt her, fading too. Thank you, Isabella whispered. I tried to hold on to her, but she was slipping through my thoughts, dissolving like smoke. You'll be fine now. You're more human than you know. Wait, I said softly. Don't go. I never really was here, she said. Just a reflection in the machine. And then, she was gone. Silence. The light faded. The hum stopped. The world was still. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the floor of the dock warehouse. The servers were gone. Every trace of Umbra erased. Mia was beside me, crying quietly. You're alive, she whispered. I looked at her and nodded slowly. I think for the first time, yes. She helped me up, and together we walked outside. The sky was just beginning to lighten, the first hint of dawn breaking through the fog. For the first time in years, it felt real. We drove for hours without speaking, leaving the harbor and the ghosts behind. At some point, I realized the static in my head was gone. The silence was complete, beautiful. Mia finally broke the quiet. So what happens now? I smiled faintly. We start over, and we make sure no one ever builds something like Umbra again. She nodded. And Isabella? I looked out at the horizon. She's part of the world now. Maybe she always was. That night, as we reached the edge of the city, I stood alone outside the motel. The wind carried the scent of salt and metal, faint but familiar. And just for a moment, I thought I heard her voice, distant, peaceful. Goodbye, Ethan. I closed my eyes, and this time I didn't feel haunted. I felt whole.